Hello everybody, my name is TechReal, and Pixar's Win or Lose is a pretty neat show. It takes the sport that I find most tolerable and mixes it with fun Pixar depictions of imagination and stress and trust issues, fun things. But seriously, it is a really good show with some really good emotions, and one of my favorite episodes is episode 6, where we meet a character named Ewan. And as Ewan is dealing with his problem, we take a look inside of his heart to see his sort of inner self in a little inner heart chamber that's represented in this really neat little crafty cardboard style. I loved this immediately. I always love little crafty looking things, especially when they're styled to look crafty, and you get to see little miniatures, and it's just a fun little energy, and it's throughout the episode. And when I saw fans of the show making their own versions of what their inner heart character would be and how their heart would look, I knew I had to make my own version. So that's what we're gonna do today, and we're gonna start with step 1, the sketch. So I started out with the basic frame of the heart, but before I went too far, I figured I should probably design my inner self first, just for size purposes. So I did my best to recreate the proper proportioning of the characters that we see in the episode, and other than that, there's not too much to say about this design so far. Basically everything changes later. I didn't like the very basic pose I started with, and the outfit I also just didn't love, so that will be changed later. But for now it works for sizing, so I could figure out where everything goes. Back over to the heart, I went with the same sort of structure as seen in the original heart from the episode, the platform floor, the stairs, and of course the door out. I went a slightly different angle for the bed. In the episode it's shown to just sort of be to the right, and it's just a normal bed. I kind of wanted to do something a little silly, and I saw that I had this sort of bottom area, so I just opened up a trap door and decided to make it this sort of sleep layer bunker thing. It just seemed like a really cozy spot. I just couldn't resist. And it also seemed like a nice place to sort of hide away during times of sadness or stress, which, they do happen. So having a nice little safe space in the heart to hide away and feel feelings for a while felt like a nice little addition to have. But it's okay, there is a duck for comfort, also because ducks are great, and also because I realized I had this tiny duck that would be perfect for this small scale project, so duck. Next came all the decorations and the fun stuff. What am I gonna put in my heart? What makes me, me, and how can I incorporate it in the space? First of all, the door out is sort of meant to be a TARDIS door. Doctor Who is a very big fandom for me, and it also plays into my maladaptive daydreaming, for those who know what that is. So I decided that I would make my TARDIS door, my version of a TARDIS is basically a private detective door that is blue and can just go anywhere. Is it cheating to do a blue TARDIS with a wooden door when that's what the normal TARDIS is? Why, yes it is. But I don't care, it's my daydreams, and I'm having fun, so... I threw a yellow Skidoo frame up into the upper right corner with a paw print in it as a reference to Blue's Clues, a lifelong hyperfixation for me. So much so that I actually have a channel dedicated to it, which a lot of you might be coming from. And yeah, this isn't the Blue's Clues channel, but Blue's Clues had to be in my heart somewhere, so there it is. In the center wall, I have two very simple drawings of my two OCs, Goobs and Peter, who I will have to introduce properly in a future video. I threw some art supplies into a cup to throw under the stairs, and then some notebooks and a canvas over to the right to sort of further the art theme, because, art is something I do quite a bit. And last but certainly not least, I threw up some Sandersides cosplay hanging up on a string over in the upper left corner, and this one's a bit of a threefer. Because not only does it represent my hyperfixation towards Sandersides, not only does it also represent my love of cosplaying, though kind of rare of a tendency to do so, but on top of both of them, it represents my interest in mental health, which is a very big topic that I've taken interest in over the last several years, and which Sandersides is a series dealing in. So yeah, those are some efficient decorations up there. And when it came to coloring, I decided one more fun detail would be to have the back wall painted to look like Van Gogh's Starry Night, as a further extension of the art love. I definitely wouldn't call myself a big fan of classic paintings and classical artists in that way, but Van Gogh is a favorite, probably due to the previously mentioned love of Doctor Who. But Starry Night is undoubtedly my favorite painting of all time, which may not be much to say as someone who doesn't really deal in classic paintings, but it just makes me happy. And with that, I colored in the rest and the sketch was finally done, meaning I could move on to step 2, making the heart frame. I took some cardboard that already had a bend in it because, I had it and I figured it would help in the shaping, so I cut out 2 strips from that, and then all I had to do was bend the pieces into the proper shapes and glue the top bit to the bottom bit. The shape itself wouldn't actually stay a heart until it was attached to the back piece, but for now, it's attached and that's what matters. Oh no. I glued all the edges and I can't put this down now because if I put it down it might stick to my table. Well, I guess this is my life now, holding this. Huh. Next we move on to step 3, painting the back wall, and this is the step where I sort of overestimated my art skills and underestimated the techniques required to properly recreate Starry Night. I definitely was going for a simplified version anyways, but oh, I struggled. Plus, on top of it all, I was just sort of impatient for a lot of it, which is not the way to do it, so I just wasn't waiting for paint to dry, I just sort of did it all in one go, and that became especially annoying during, the yellow paint bits, because they just did not want to layer down properly, or opaquely, and that, oh, geez. I'm pretty new to painting, I should probably mention, so, yeah. The thing is, it's imperfect, but so is my heart, so honestly, it being kinda rough and janky kinda works better. At least, that's what I'm telling myself, because, all in all, I am actually quite happy with how it turned out. I think it works well within the context of the project, so, yeah, now we move on to step 4, attaching the heart frame and the back wall. This step definitely took some patience, which, as we've previously established, I'm not great at. Because once I added the glue, I had to just sort of hold it into shape and just wait for it to dry enough so that it would hold. Yeah, it was not a hard step, but it was an annoying step. Once it dried, I trimmed the excess and decided to throw in the floor and stairs. As mildly annoying as this part was, this is definitely the point in the project where it was starting to look like a thing. Like, it wasn't just materials and pieces, it was becoming the thing I wanted it to be. So it's always a fun bit, to just sort of see it start to come to life. Moving on to step 5, sketching the miniatures. I needed to get the miniatures drawn onto paper, so I could color them and then eventually attach them to cardboard. So I started by tracing what I'd made so far to establish the scale that I should be drawing at. Gotta make sure all the little bits can actually fit inside the heart. I drew everything where I wanted it to go, and then I traced it onto another piece of paper to get the final lines down, and to have the drawings be a bit further apart to make things easier for later. Next up, we have step 6, coloring the miniatures, and this is definitely the step where things started to kind of fall apart. For one thing, you may have noticed by now, the footage is not of the utmost quality. It's kinda dull and not the most crisp, and this was starting to get to me more and more. The earlier footage wasn't too bad, but this is where it started to get noticeable, for me at least. The second problem was that because I decided for some odd reason to do the final lines in pencil, trying to color over that with colored pencil was just smudging everything. I decided to try to Mod Podge over it and seal in the pencil lines so that maybe I could color over it and nothing would smudge, but that didn't work either. And then we move on to step 7, reevaluating my decisions. I was feeling defeated and stressed, and it felt like I had done a lot of work for absolutely nothing, and on top of it all, the video just wasn't looking the way I wanted it to, and it was very demotivating, and very not fun. So I took a breath, I tried some things, and went in with a new plan. I redrew everything in pen, and as you can see by the sudden quality increase, I started filming on my phone, which means less time lapses and more short clips, but I think that'll do. And that's how we finally find ourselves at step 8, coloring the miniatures for real. Here I'm coloring in the newly designed inner me, holding up a little picture to further push the artist theme, as most of my editions have done so far. And the drawing I have him holding is Unicorn Tech Reel, as MLP is another one of my bigger fandoms. Plus it's also the show that really launched me into drawing more consistently, so yes, furthering the art theme. Every little bit is furthering the art theme in this art project, which I love. I love that. From there, I just colored in all the other bits, and as frustrating and sad as things were getting for a little bit, this is where I started to have fun again. The colors were going down nicely, the pen wasn't smudging because it's pen, and I should have known to use pen, and everything was just looking how I wanted it to, and even better, so I mean, it honestly picked up the energy from here until the end of the project. Things just continued on this upward swing, so relief. We move swiftly on to step 9, transferring the miniatures to cardboard. I cut out each drawing onto its own little piece, arranged them, and then glued them onto a piece of cardboard, except for the OC pictures and paw prints, since those would be attached a little differently. In fact, while I had the pieces in the Mod Podge, I threw Goobs and Peter up onto the wall. Then, once the glue is dried, I cut each of the miniatures free, and we move on to step 10, finishing the Fiddly bits, because there were a couple of Fiddly bits that I needed to finish. Did that need explanation? Probably not. Anyways, first I glued the door frame to the door and put the skidoo frame together for the paw print picture. Then I broke out the paint one more time to paint them up, as well as the insides of the books to look more like paper once they were put together, and then I put a white coat on the canvas as well. And unlike the sort of spacey picture I had on the canvas in the sketch, I decided to squeeze one more major fandom in and painted the Mark of Cain from Supernatural. Seemed easy enough to paint on a small scale, and I was right. I glued some construction paper to the books to act as covers, and then some tiny hangers I made off screen out of paper clips to the cosplays, and those paperclip hangers, they were hard to make. I didn't film them because I honestly barely got to do them on their own. My poor fingers. Work with the proper tools, kids. Anyways, we now move to the best step of all, step 11, putting everything in. All that was left to do was just glue everything where it was supposed to go in the heart. This was a very exciting step to reach at this point in the project. Again, after all the frustration, after all the days of work, and even some of the frustration of just putting these things in, because, I mean, some of these things were really hard to get in there. That cup under the stairs drove me insane. But it was really rewarding because every new thing I threw in there just made the project one more step towards full completion, and seeing it come together was just really, really cool. Last thing I did was fold up a tissue to act as the blanket for the sleep layer bunker thing, threw in the pillow and the duck, and it was all finally done, which means we can move to step 12, feel the wave of relief, and bask in the result. I am honestly so happy with how this turned out. Did it turn out perfect and perfectly as I imagined? No, but again, my heart isn't perfect, and therefore the depiction of my heart isn't perfect either. But even with the imperfections, I really love every little bit of it. I love all the little references to different things that are just me-coded, all the different things I love, all the different things that matter to me. I'm really happy that I made this. And also, it was just a really fun exercise in sort of figuring out what are the biggest things in my life. What are just the things that make me me. It's just a really cool bit of introspection, and it's really fun to just sort of get to view all of it in one little chunk. All of these little references, all of these little bits of you. And honestly, I encourage anyone to make this. Whether you've seen Win or Lose or not, or like Win or Lose or not, I think it's just a really cool little craft that just sort of represents you as a creator, as a person, as a whatever. And I do identify as a whatever. But yeah, that's all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.